Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Infused Church. My name is Simone.
And I'm Caitlin, and we are so glad to be joining you today. We are just full of giggles this morning. I think that might be the Christmas joy.
It might be, or the hot chocolate.
Or the hot
I don't know what it is.
The coffee this morning. Well, here at Infused, we are a place for imperfect people to explore faith and find community.
Yeah, we really encourage you all to find that community while you're here and online, and go ahead and say hi in the chat. That's why we have that there, so you can build that community even when you are online and virtual. And so today we have a question to get your chat started. Today's question is, what is your favorite Christmas movie?
Yeah, so share that with your host, Stacy, in the chat box below. Tell us where you're watching from too. That's always really fun.
That is really fun.
And Simone, what is your favorite Christmas movie?
My favorite Christmas movie is perfect for the sermon that we're starting today.
Yes.
It's Elf. It's one of my favorite. It's a classic.
It really
it's so
is.
good. There's so many one-liners in there.
Out?
Mid-2000s.
Yeah, and it's been a classic ever since.
And so it goes right with our sermon series that we're starting today called The Rules of Christmas. This is actually based off of the Elf Code, if you know the movie, which is really funny. And so,
do you know the rules from the Elf Code?
I don't.
Singing loud for all to hear? Or
yes.
like that one, eating the 4 main food groups?
Oh, yes.
Is that on there?
I think so.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll find out, I'm sure.
I'm sure we will be well-versed by the
end of the series.
Yeah. So that should be a lot of fun getting that series started with Pastor Taylor.
Yeah, and we also wanted to remind you about our giving tree. It is not over yet. We have one more week to get those gifts for the families locally.
Yes.
You can do that online through our Amazon link, where you can give to the giving tree through Amazon. So it'll ship directly to, it'll say Gina Smothers. She's a trusted person here at Infused. You can send those gifts. Yeah, we know her. Like, oh. And we can send those to her, and then we will get those wrapped and given back to the community.
Yeah.
So I think that's at infused.church/giving tree.
Sure.
Yeah.
Also coming up, of course, with Christmas right around the corner, we will have our Christmas Eve services, which of course will have our in-person services, but we'll also have virtual as well. So feel free to engage however you feel comfortable. But we're really looking forward to celebrating all month with you all.
Yeah, those will be at 3 p.m. and 5 p.m.
Yes.
Yes, so we'll have 2 services. Those should both be online as well.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Plenty of opportunities to watch.
Yeah, and so we'll tell you more during service today about all the awesome events we have coming up. But until then, we hope that you enjoy your Sunday and enjoy today's message, and we'll plan on seeing you after. Thanks so much.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. If you guys want to go ahead and stand and sing with us. My name's Grace, this is Michael, and we're going to worship this morning. Come and behold him, born
Will you bow your heads and pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much for the opportunity just to wake up again, Lord, and say thank you. God, as we enter this season of Advent, the season of waiting for a King to be born, Lord, may we just be able to reflect on our lives. Reflect on how much you do for us, Lord, how much you love us. So much so that you sent your Son for us. God, I ask that we just continue to reflect on that. The love that you have for us, God. That when we go back to our daily routines, we can remember that we are loved. We are cared for. We pray these things in your name. Amen. You may be seated.
Hello and welcome to Infused Church. My name is Melinda and I serve on our operations team. If you joined us in person today, you may have gotten a program when you walked in. In it, you will find some helpful information about Infused Church, today's service, and a giving envelope. If you've come prepared to give today, drop it in the offering bucket on the welcome table in the back of the gym. You can also give through our Infused Church app or on our website. If you'd like to fill out the connection card in your program, you can drop it in the offering bucket as well. If it's your first time with us today, welcome. We're so glad you're here. If you haven't already, stop by the first time guest table in the entryway to receive a free gift. It's our way of saying thanks so much for visiting today. For those of you joining us online for the first time, fill out our online connection card and we'll drop a thank you in the mail. Also, online guests, for the best viewing experience, go to live.infuse.church and adjust your video quality by using the gear icon in the bottom of your screen. Now, here are some things happening at Infuse.
Be sure to check out this month's parent cue card on the Kids Ministry check-in tables. These are a great way to cue you in on what your child is discussing on Sunday and how you can continue the conversation at home.
Finally, don't forget to check in at Infuse Church on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and download our app so you can watch messages, see upcoming events, and more. Thanks again for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Infused Church. My name is Simone.
And I'm Caitlin, and we are so glad that all of you are joining us this lovely morning. And we are up here today to tell you the top 2 things that you need to know this week. You may think you already knew them, but you're going to find out now, the top 2.
Yeah, you have no idea.
No idea what's in store for you today.
You may have an idea. Next weekend, the first thing that we have is next weekend is a jam-packed weekend full of just really fun activities. So on Saturday, we don't want y'all to forget, we have Holiday Hoopla, which is our annual community event that is just completely free for the community. It's such a fun time. It's one of my favorite events.
Santa's going to be there. There'll be some cookies to decorate, all the holiday things you could need.
Absolutely. And so it's a great event to serve at as well. It's one of my favorites. So we really encourage you to be there if you can. And on Sunday, we have Jingle Jam, which Caitlin, what's that about?
So I want to tell you guys about Jingle Jam this morning because this is our first ever family experience Sunday. So that means that we're going to have childcare for just nursery and everybody else is going to be in here with us. And this is where you probably have no idea you're in store for. We are going to have so many fun things. We're going to have games, prizes for everyone. If you want a little gift card, this will be your Sunday to come. We're gonna have light up beach balls, light sticks to take home and entertain your kids for hours, I'm sure. Maybe even some karaoke and some great acting as well.
Absolutely. And so if you're like me too, even if you don't have kids and you're an adult, it's still such a fun service to be part of. I'm honestly looking forward to it a lot. And also for the adults, we're gonna have an ugly sweater contest as well. So bring your ugliest sweater that you can and show it off next Sunday.
More prizes for the uglier the sweater. I can't remember who won last year, but I remember there was a llama involved on someone's sweater once.
That had to be Brit.
Yes. Yep.
Feels
so
like a Brit thing.
Come with your ugly sweaters. We're going to hear the Christmas story in a way that makes sense for kids and for adults, and give you guys some things to take home to help you stay focused on Jesus during this busy season at home as well.
Yes, and so the second thing that we have is Be Rich and celebrating Be Rich. We just had a wonderful month full of just being generous and leading with our faith in our generosity as well. And so we want to celebrate this past month.
Hopefully
that
we
have.
can celebrate, Simone. We'll have to
Hopefully.
see what we raised this
We're
morning.
gonna have to see, because last we checked, we were at 9,000.
We were,
right?
yep, with a goal of 14,500 to get
Yes.
to.
And so just to remind you all, we have all these awesome projects that we were putting money towards during Be Rich. So we had mattresses for orphans, we had student support with buying winter coats and clothing for kids in the CCA school district. We also had ministry scholarships, and finally we had covering some winter utility bills in the area. And so both local and international causes that we were giving to this past month.
Yeah, and if you're unfamiliar with what Be Rich is, we do this every November here at Infuse. We raise a bunch of money to meet a goal, a big goal usually, and then we give it all away. Every cent of it. And we give it to help our community, but also to help the hurting world around us internationally. And like Simone said, these are the ways that we gave this year.
And this year was feeling a little bit
yes.
more
It was a
tight,
little
right?
tense, yes,
Yeah.
because behind the scenes, we already knew that setting this goal was taking a step of faith. We were already at a deficit from past years to raise this money, so it was a big step of faith to set a goal of $14,500.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we made it.
Yeah, do we have to keep people in suspense any longer?
I don't know. I think we need to hear a drum roll from the audience,
All right,
though.
here we go. Drum roll.
Oh, even like a little mouth drum
Oh, yeah,
roll.
do you
Okay,
want?
three,
Here we go.
2,
1.
Oh, wow. Oh! I forgot to turn my flashing lights on.
Oh,
I was going
wow.
to turn them on in celebration. I missed the opportunity. There we go. $19,203.92.
That is absolutely amazing. And so we want to thank you all so much. Also online, if you gave, thank you so much. All of that money is going toward these projects, and we're going to give that extra
Yes.
money that we raise. We're going to speak with those various causes and make sure that money goes to a good place as well.
Yes, and we appreciate your generosity, but we don't want it to stop now. This season is a great time to give, and there are 4 easy ways to do that here at Infuse. You can give at the bucket in the back of the gym, online at infuse.church/give, through our app, or the P.O. box on your screen. We also would love to have your generosity of your time, talents, and skills, because we know you're all talented people out there, and you can sign up to serve at infuse.church/connect at our various events. We have so many coming up this holiday season that we even have a sign up in the back. So you can come and talk to me after service if you'd like to sign up in person.
Okay, that felt like more than two
That was
things.
way more than 2 things, I feel
Like a
too.
lot. Sorry, y'all.
You guys hung in there well this morning. But we have one final thing that we do
Yes.
every week. And this is just to remind you guys that the church is not a building or a place. It's the people, and with the people sitting around you, watching with you online. And so to get to know those people better, we give you a question to answer to people around you and those that you're watching with. And today's question is,
Have you ever gone Christmas caroling, and what's your favorite Christmas song? It's a 2-parter.
yeah, feel free to carol along with your neighbors if you want, I
gosh.
guess. You can
Yikes.
get the Christmas spirit going. Okay, you guys can answer that question with those sitting around you and watching online in 3, 2, 1, go.
What's this?
This is the North Pole.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Where's the snow?
Why are you smiling like that?
I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite.
Make work your favorite. That's your favorite, okay?
Okay.
Work is your new favorite.
Fine.
It's time for the announcement. Okay, people, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., Santa's coming to town.
Santa here? I know him. I know him.
Yeah, what a Christmas classic. Hey, so welcome. We're in week 1, the beginning of a new series called The Rules of Christmas, and this is actually based on the Elf Code, which is the code of the elves that all elves are supposed to abide by from the movie Elf, which is actually loosely based on the real human being Saint Nicholas, who lived about 400 AD in Turkey. And he came up with a set of rules, there's 3 of them, and then the movie Elf kind of adopted them in their own little twist. So today we're going to be talking about rule number 1. And then after that, we're going to go out of order because next week is Jingle Jam, which you really need to be here for. It's something we're trying brand new this year. It's a family service. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of excitement, a lot of energy. It's just worth seeing because it's either going to be fantastic or it's not. But either way, it's going to be worth watching. So you should be there for that. If you're watching online, it's going to be a great Sunday to visit that Sunday because like I said, great or not so great, it'll be worth it, okay? And then on December 18th, we're going to do rule number 2. So kind of out of order, rule number 2 is going to be December 18th. It's going to be really powerful. I actually have my notes all done for that. I was working on this sermon until like right before the start of the message today. But that sermon I got pretty well. So that should be hopefully pretty good. So you should all be here for pretty much all the weeks. And then with Christmas Eve, anyways, just don't miss a Sunday. That's the point, all right? So now, here's the question. How many of you, as you look at past Christmases, or really any holidays, Thanksgiving, but really like Christmases, you look at past Christmases, how many of you, like when you get in the car after kind of it's all said and done and you're heading home, you know, for good, or maybe, you know, you get home and whatever that point is where you finally just sit down and can exhale after everything, all the traveling, all the eating, all the gift giving, and all that stuff. How many of you, by show of hands, look at your spouse, think to yourself, wow, Christmas was just perfect? I can't, no, a lot of laughing, one person. Okay, one person, that's fantastic. That's what I assumed online. I'm assuming it's about the same percentage, you know, 1 out of 99, okay? So no one has ever said, except for one, it really ruined the flow here, but you know, no one has really said, wow, that was just perfect. It couldn't have gone much better. Very few people, let's say, very few people say it doesn't go that well, right? There were, like, the Christmas had no family issues, there's no food issues, there's no gift giving issues. The kids were saints, the in-laws were saints, the weather was great. I mean, it just doesn't really happen all too often. Now except maybe when you were 6, right? And you didn't know any better, and all Christmas was to you was gifts, and you got the gifts that you wanted, and so everything was great. But for most of us, it's not always perfect. It doesn't go well for a number of reasons, but one of the main reasons is because anything that really involves a lot of people means that there's going to be a lot of expectations. There's going to be traditions. There's going to be rules, both spoken and unspoken. And the only way to avoid all of those unspoken and spoken expectations are just to avoid Christmas altogether and avoid seeing other people. But we can't do that. You're going to meet other people. You're going to see other people. And therefore, there is a really, really good chance that those expectations that you have and that they have are going to end up broken. Right? No matter what. It's even the rules that are spoken. Like even the rules that say, hey, you need to be there at this time are going to be broken. Expectations, though spoken, are so often broken. If you tell everybody that they're supposed to be there at noon for Christmas lunch, some of them will be there at, wow. Couple takeaways from what just happened in the room right there, okay? People were instantly ready to answer that question. And the answers, my answer in my notes was 12:30. No, the answers in the room varied wildly from 1 to even 4 p.m. Christmas is magical, isn't it? Okay. Yes. Or, there's spoken rules about what you're supposed to do or not supposed to do in regard to gift giving, right? Everybody's supposed to have gifts, and then you show up and you bring gifts, but not everybody has them. Or we're not doing gifts this year, and then you show up, and then people have the gifts. And one way or the other, especially if you brought kids to these experiences, somebody is going to be crying along the way because there wasn't enough gifts. They got more gifts than the other kids got, and nobody's eating because we had to wait till 4 or so to get the food because we were waiting to eat. This is just personal experience from my part too. But anyways, the conclusion is it takes the joy out of Christmas, right? And it makes you, a part of you want to sit there and say, I just want to avoid all of this altogether. It makes you visibly stressed. It makes you visibly dread parts of Christmas. And that's just the spoken expectations, right? And then there's a bunch of unspoken expectations, right? Especially if you have a lot of people there, a lot of people are going to have unspoken expectations. And the sad thing about expectations, often unspoken, are they're going to be broken too, right? And a lot of times there's a lot more unspoken than there were spoken. How many of you are some of the people who travel the farthest, who go the most work to get to that destination, and you feel like sometimes that your presence isn't even appreciated? Or you go with the expectation that Christmas should be positive, but yet some people are just being negative. Or it was supposed to be this many people there, and then some people brought extra gifts, and then you were short gifts or presents, and it was just kind of awkward. And there was a plan communicated or not communicated, but everybody else seemed to know but you, and they were unspoken. Or maybe you, like me, love to eat some of those food items, like you're kind of looking forward to, yes, the people, but also the food. And then some people also are looking forward to the food, and so they go and they eat all the food. In fact, they not only eat all the food, they have seconds before you even get a plate. And you're like, I don't think that's what Jesus would have done. I don't say that, but I think it. Anyways. And so it makes you want to avoid Christmas. And then there's the deeper unspoken things. And these are the ones that I think in the midst of the holiday cheer feel heavier. They feel more substantial and meaningful. Like all that other stuff is logistics. All that other stuff is kind of superficial in a way. And then it comes to the deeper ones. Like those people who go into Christmas hoping for joy and hope, but then they lose their job. And they go into it unemployed. It's difficult to focus on everything that's happening because they're wondering about their future and their paycheck. Or they're sitting financially behind, and now even more financially behind because of the decisions they made leading into Christmas. Or the family crisis that nobody wants to talk about, or the family members that were lost that past year or in past years that should have, that could have been there, but aren't. Or those in the room at Christmas time that are struggling with illnesses or disease or mental illness. And it makes all of those other issues seem small. And it makes all the little family squabbles small. It feels as though there should be a rule or an expectation or tradition that everybody just gets to be healthy and whole around Christmas, but that isn't the case. And those expectations, or those specifically unmet expectations, can take the joy out of Christmas. They keep the Christmas joy out of reach. And so what do? Some of us, we avoid it. Some of us, we grin and bear it to try to make it work and just get through it. And this just isn't really about Christmas, is it? I mean, it could be all times of year. We have expectations, and they go unmet, and it's heartbreaking, and it's difficult, and it's frustrating, both spoken and unspoken. And so today, I want to give you a possible response to all of that. And that's our Christmas rule number 1. And it's a rule that the Israelites from 580 BC or so got introduced to. So we're actually going to look at a bit of story that's 2,500 years old but that they could have learned something from, and we certainly can learn something from. And it has a lot to do with Christmas, though it doesn't feel like it should, because they're a little different in time, in the timeline. And today, what we're going to look at comes from the book of Isaiah. That's in the Old Testament, okay? And the timeline is a bit funny in Isaiah, like who wrote what parts of Isaiah and when did they write it and all that kind of stuff. If you know biblical history, then you know this is a little confusing. Not everybody agrees. We're not going to focus on that part today. We're just going to try to get the truth out of the message that's in this story, or at least part of the truth. I'm not going to be able to get everything. But that's where we're going to focus and not get into the technicalities too much. So a little backstory, just so everybody has context. So you're not going to be Bible history majors, but you're going to know a little bit to be dangerous with. This whole story begins actually many, many years before then with King David. King David was a very famous Jewish king, and he really took the Jewish nation to its pinnacle. Okay, followed by his son Solomon, both kind of well-known guys. And it was the highest point of power and influence in the world at the time. And then from that point on, it was kind of a roller coaster that progressively moved downward. Sometimes up, sometimes down, but ultimately down and down and down. And part of that was the fault of David. Part of that was the fault of Solomon. And then a lot of that was the fault of a lot of other kings to follow Solomon and David. And the nation of Israel, once which was strong and powerful, became two nations because of a civil war and diminished in power until Israel was just a sliver of what it once had been. Here was about the size of the kingdom or the southern kingdom, I should say, of the nation of Israel. The northern at this time was already conquered and part of the Assyrian Empire and just annihilated. So it was very, very small. You don't have to worry about the movement, but it was just a sliver. Where in David's time, pretty much almost everything on this map that you could see was, plus more, the kingdom of Israel. But they, at this point, were in a terrible, terrible place. I mean, you talk about unspoken, unmet expectations. I'm sure most of the people in the nation of Israel at this point was feeling frustrated and angry that the world was unfair simply because of the struggle that they were enduring because of the state of the country at the time. It was like decades and decades of unmet expectations. And the worst is the nation knew that they would soon be conquered. They were conquered by the Assyrians, and they soon knew that they would be conquered by the Babylonians, depending on the timeline you look at, or that they, at this point in the story, were conquered by the Babylonians. The Babylonian Empire came in and exiled them, and so they took them out of their homes. Imagine one day you're just sitting in your front porch or something, and somebody comes along out of your living room, grabs you, and says, you're going to move all the way to modern-day Iraq from modern-day Israel and begin a whole new life in a country you don't know with people that you don't know. And this was the moment for them that would be like for us the moment when you're ready to give up, when your hope is kind of at its last breath. You're so done. You just kind of want to shake someone for that matter. All those broken expectations for so long have built up and you're just tired of it. And this is 170 years before Christmas, by the way. But Isaiah is going to come into this and he is going to take the people, the audience, you all, and he's going to say, no, it's not that bad. Yeah, it's bad, but it's not as bad as you think because of our rule. And so here's kind of how he starts. And he's speaking to the nation of Israel, by the way, a bunch of people. And it's kind of like this moment of a coach going into the locker room, like halftime in the game, you know, and the head coach has got to get his people pumped up. He's got to get the people ready to go out there and win and stay focused the rest of the game. So, and it kind of sounds like that, okay? So here's how he goes in. He says, awake, awake, clothe yourself in strength, Zion. Clothe yourself with your beautiful garments, Jerusalem, the holy city. Shake yourself from the dust. Rise up, captive Jerusalem. Okay, get out of the floor, get out of the dirt, and let's go and do something. This is Isaiah 52. Release yourself from the chains around your neck, captive daughter of Zion. So it's very like, get up, let's get going, very encouraging, high energy, okay? And then he goes on in verse 7. he says, and this is how he starts, how beautiful on the mountains. Now, a lot of Old Testament, really even New Testament, you have to have some context to really grasp what's happening here. How beautiful on the mountains. The mountaintops were a symbol of expectation. Because there was no internet. There were no satellite views. You didn't get live streams from across the world. The only way that you knew something was coming was because you saw it. And the first place that you would see it coming, whether an invasion or maybe a messenger, bad or good news, the way you saw it coming was on the mountaintop. So this is a picture of Israel, or of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem, this is actually like an elevated picture, but in Jerusalem, you sit kind of in a bowl. And there's mountaintops all around you, one way or the other. And so you would see them. You would see what was about to happen because you see what's on the mountaintop. Good or bad. It was a symbol of expectation. And it's true, this mountaintop analogy is true for us today. Because we get up, and what do we do when we get up in the morning? We think about what we have to do next. We think about what's coming. We look out the window, we look at our schedule, we look at the day ahead, we look at the Christmas season ahead, the tasks to do, the meetings to get done, the work to accomplish, the kids to take care of, the broken things that we have on our plate that are burdening us, that sometimes we fixate on. We wake up in a sad place because of what's in front of us. We know things aren't going well, or we know things probably aren't going to go well. We're trepidatious. We have broken hopes and expectations, and they're weighing us down. What are those things? What are those things weighing you down going into this season? What are those things that will weigh you down this week, this past week, or the week ahead? What are those? What are those things that you're putting up on a hill trying to figure out what's going to happen when they finally get to us? How is this thing that we see far off going to work out? Because from here, it doesn't look good. Isaiah's answer to the nation of Israel was, look at them. Look at the mountains. Look at what's beautiful about the mountains. He says, I want to tell you what to expect from God. You're looking at all the things you expect around you in the world and around Christmas time, or all this stuff that you have going on, or the invaders or the Babylonians or occupation or all the things that are unmet expectations in your life. He says, look again. How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news. It's one of the first moments where this phrase of good news, or in Greek, or in the New Testament, we call the gospel, or in ancient Greek, we call the euangelion, which is good news. Look for the good news. Those who proclaim peace, those who bring good tidings, those who proclaim salvation. Because, my friends, the good news is, what I want to say to you, what these messengers are going to say to you, is that your God reigns. You need to wake up, get out of the dust, because why? Your God reigns. And I get that it may not always feel like your God reigns, but he reigns. And then he goes on over many, many verses, some of which I'm just going to highlight for you, to explain why you should, and why the nation of Israel should know that God reigns and should find comfort in that. Now, a lot of this is really appropriate and pertinent to the Israelites, and they would have totally gotten and if we had more time, I would explain to you why they would have gotten a lot of this. But I want to focus on one part of this next exposition that he gives, telling about why God reigns, or why that is good news. And he starts off and he says this, see, my servant is coming. He says there's a servant, not someone who's coming to be served, but someone who's going to serve. That's the kind of person that's coming. And that servant's going to act wisely. And he will be raised up and lifted up and highly exalted. At some point, he is going to be highly exalted. And then he goes on to say a lot about this servant. He says, for he grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of dry ground. He's someone who's going to, out of nothing, out of a very inhospitable place, sprout. And he has no stately form or majesty. You're going to look at him and you're not going to think, wow, that guy, this servant is amazing. You're not going to look at this servant and think to yourself, they are just majestic. They're trying to exhibit the sense of a king or a royal person. You're not going to see that when you look at him. Nor an appearance that we would take pleasure in him, because he was despised and abandoned by men. Everyone turned their back on him. A man of great pain and familiar with sickness. This servant is going to be familiar with pain. He's going to be familiar with sickness. And like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised. And we, corporately, us Israelites, we had no regard for him. However, it was our sickness that he came himself to bear. And it was our pain that he carried. And yet we ourselves assumed that he had been afflicted. We thought he was the problem, and in all reality, he was coming to bear our sickness. He was struck down by God and humiliated. We'd look at him and we'd say, my gosh, God must not like him because, wow, the things that God is letting happen to this servant, God must not like him. He was struck down by God and humiliated. And he was pierced for our offenses. He was crushed for our wrongdoings. The punishment for our well-being was laid on him. He's going to take all of the pain and suffering, all the death that we have brought to our own lives, to the lives of others, and to this world. And by his wounds, we will find healing. All of us are like sheep, and we have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, but the Lord has caused the wrongdoing of us all to fall on him. This was 500 or so BC, before Christ. Who is the servant? Who is this servant? Who is the servant that he goes on to say in verse 12? He says, therefore, the servant I will give him a portion among the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he poured out his life unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, with the sinners. Who is this? Because this servant, he bore the sins of many and made his intercession for the transgressors. Who is this servant that's going to take all of the pain and suffering that was due to us and take it off of our shoulders? I mean, if you're a church person or not, who does it sound like Isaiah is talking about? Jesus. Sounds a lot like Jesus. And you can go home and you can read this whole 52, 53, 54 of Isaiah. And I don't know about you, but it feels really, really clear that Isaiah is stepping into the midst of the challenges of the Israelites and stepping into the midst of our challenges today, our broken expectations, the hearts that we've hardened to the world around us, our anger, especially the deep problems, the substantial problems, the problems that feel so immovable that we can't change, that feel like they're life-defining, life-altering, the matters of life and death. And Isaiah is saying to his audience, God is at work. God is not idle. God is present. God has a plan. God's working towards something. Years and years in the making. God knows where he's going, and it will come. It may not be when you think or how you think it should come, because guess what? Everybody has expectations. And again, what happens when you get a bunch of people in a room that have a bunch of expectations? Somebody's going to get upset. Somebody's expectations aren't going to be met. Not when we think it's time, but when he knows it is time, at the appointed time. He will make it right, but he will make it right. He is sending a servant to bear the sins of many so that others can live, that death is not the end. In these moments, Isaiah is saying, stare at that mountaintop, stare at that mountain of expectation. Look at it. The things that burden you, the things that intimidate you, the things that make you kind of recoil and step back and say, those broken expectations are reigning in your life. They're steering your emotions. They're impacting how you make decisions. They're in charge. And Isaiah's point is to the Israelites, and I think the truth that we need to take away from this is no, God should reign. Your God reigns. Your God reigns. Christmas is coming. The servant is coming. Light in the darkness, forgiveness for sins, shame and guilt and sin, forgiveness, hope is coming. Value, your personal value and identity. The truth is coming if you haven't already found it. I mean, so many great verses in here that he highlights and highlights and highlights. And like 54, he said, fear not, for you will not be put to shame. If you're feeling ashamed about your past, fear not. Israel, if you're feeling ashamed, because there's a lot of reasons for you to feel ashamed, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't feel humiliated, for you will not be disgraced. Why? Because the servant is coming, and he's going to show you who God is and what God's about and the love that God has for you. It's coming, and we call that coming Christmas. Read about it when you get home. Yet, we all sit here, and we let expectations or the failure of our expectations or the rules or traditions that we have in place reign in our lives, reign in our hearts. And they make us sad, and they make us unhappy, and they control us, and they drive us to pain and hurt. What if God reigned instead? I'm not saying you have to agree with it. I'm not saying you have to believe it. I'm just asking you the question, what if God reigned instead on Christmas? What if you treated every day like Christmas and all the implications that come from it? What if you treated, I brought a pillow because there's just so many. Rule number 1, treat every day like Christmas. I think there's a reason that St. Nicholas, the real one, the real person 400 years ago, wanted us to do this, to treat every day like Christmas, like it mattered. I mean, think about the Israelites. What if they would have treated every day from that point forward like Christmas, like a servant was coming? They needed to awake, they needed to pick themselves up, they needed to not fear, they needed to hope, they needed to know that God would be redeeming them, that God had a plan. Would captivity, would exile have been so terrible if they knew that truth? If they trusted in this symbol of God's redeeming, deep, unending love that is Christmas? What if we would treat every day like Christmas, and not the stuff that we do at Christmas, because we do a lot of stuff at Christmas. Not the gifts at Christmas, because you're probably not going to get what you want. And not your family at Christmas, because they're probably going to let you down. And not the trip that you're planning to go on at Christmas, because it's probably not going to go as expected. And not your health, because that's not guaranteed. And not your job, because that's at some point going to fall through or disappoint you. Expectations are broken every day, not just at Christmas. Come on. What does this say about God? Christmas, the servant. He's not absent, he's present. He's not here to shame you, he's here to forgive you, to change you, to redeem you, to show you hope and light in the darkest parts of life. That's what Jesus came to do. God's been working at this for 1,000 years. He knows we're slow. He knows we take a few. Sometimes we take generations to get it figured out. But he's patient. That's what love does. Love is patient. And he was patient with the nation of Israel at the time, and he's patient with us now. But he's calling us to remember Christmas and the implications of what that means, not all the stuff that we do. That we would come to a place in our hearts and our minds and our lives where we would say something like this: my God reigns. When the unmet expectations come rolling around, when the anger starts boiling up, when the fear starts boiling up, when the loneliness starts boiling up, our response is not to go to that which is temporary and brings us unhealth or brings us greed or makes us spend a bunch of money, but we would go to this, my God reigns. My God reigns. We would even say it out loud, my God reigns. It changes our perspective. It helps us to remember what really matters. That a simple gift giving experience on Sunday isn't going to solve some of the deeper problems that people have in the room on Christmas. But that's okay because my God reigns. And I know some of you probably like, well, Taylor, that's great and all, but that's just words, man. That's just Christians, you guys are all about the words. That's what you tell yourselves to make yourselves feel better. The world's still broken. So much has gone wrong. It went wrong for the Israelites. It went wrong a million times since the Israelites. Like, how is God even present? Yes, you're right. It's still broken. That's not what we're claiming here. Because human beings have free will. God has given them free will. And they will take that free will and they will hurt you with it. And you will hurt them with it. No one's claiming that the world is perfect. No one's claiming that. That's not what this statement is about. They're going to do hurtful things. It's broken. And the earth, I know this is going to become shock to you, but the earth is not heaven. In fact, as we learned 2 years ago in a series called Stranger Things, the world, the earth, is the opposite of heaven. God created the heaven and the earth. They're two opposites. Heaven was for heavenly things. The earth was for earthly things. They all had responsibility and they all had role, but the earth is not heaven. And that's why sometimes it feels like there is what on earth? Anybody remember? Hell. It's why earth sometimes feels like a bit of hell more than it feels like a bit of heaven. It's almost a battleground, if you will. And in Christianity, we call it for what it is, broken. A battleground, a war zone, if you will. But it doesn't change the truth. You can say at the same time, okay, this is bad. This is not good. And at the same time, you can also say, yes, but my God reigns. They're not mutually exclusive. Both can be true. This is not good, but my God reigns. And let's be honest, we don't want to say my God reigns. We don't want to say this. We want to stew in our broken moments. We want to tell everybody about our broken moments and our pain and our suffering and our unmet expectations. And we want anger to reign, and we want pain to reign, and we want our fear to reign and our greed to reign in our lives because we have convinced ourselves that it makes us feel better, but it doesn't. It doesn't. You will continue to be disappointed until you decide to put your faith and your trust and your lordship, your kingship of your life. You have the free will to do this in the one who doesn't disappoint. In your heavenly Father, in the Lord above. And to not stew and let all of the rest of it reign. That is one side of Christmas that we need to remember. Not just once a year, but every day in our lives. And in the end, God reigns. Who's ultimately in charge? God reigns. Not you. You don't want you to be in charge. You will let you down. You will let others down. You don't want your family to be in charge because they're going to let you down. You know that. Doesn't mean they don't love you. Doesn't mean they don't care about you. But they're going to let you down. And so we need to put our hearts on the one who really reigns. It can be celebrated every day, not just on Christmas. Let's treat every day like it was Christmas, especially in those moments when we want anger to reign, especially in the moments when we want our control to reign in our lives, when we want our pain to reign. We want a pity party for ourselves. We want pity to reign for us. Instead, we step into that, and it's so difficult to do, but we say, my God reigns. That's Christmas. That brings people near and far to the foot of a manger not of a majestic king, but of a baby. You wouldn't look at a baby in a manger and say, well, that's a king right there. He looks great in that straw hay bale, barn. Isaiah said, no, that's not who's coming. But it doesn't change the fact that your God reigns. If you would, bow your heads, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you that you so loved the world. You so loved the world. You gave us Christmas. You so loved the world, you sent your son to earth, a servant not to be served, but to serve, to give his life as ransom for the transgressions of many, so that many could find life, not death. And that many is us. Lord, help us to remember that. Help us to remember that Jesus is the reason we celebrate Christmas. Jesus is the celebration. And it is a celebration that people could have been having for hundreds of years before even Jesus came. And as such, we can be having it 100 years, 1,000 years since. And it's in that we can hope. It's in that we can find life. It's in that we can walk away from shame and guilt and find forgiveness. It's in that we can bring hope and light and peace into this world, because you so loved us and gave to us a gift. Jesus came so that you would give. It's a gift. And it's our choice. It's always been our choice. We have free will. I can't force everyone in this room or online to accept it. It's our choice to receive that gift. It was the choice of the Israelites 2,500 years ago to accept that gift of your love and to be awakened to that. Lord, help that to be so much greater, to reign over the fear, the death, the anger, the pain in our lives. Help us to choose your reign in our lives, Lord. Nothing else. And in it, find peace. This Christmas, every Christmas, and every day. Jesus, we pray this in your wonderful name. Amen. Thank you all so much for being here. We're going to sing another song about Christmas. And I hope to see you all next week for Jingle Jam. So if you would stand and let's sing together and have a wonderful week.
We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse far, fields and fountains, wars and mountains, following yonder star. Born a king on Bethlehem's plain, gold I bring to crown him again, king forever, ceasing never over us all to reign. Star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Frankincense and myrrh I bring, see him there, our Savior and King. Heaven sings hallelujah, hallelujah, the earth will sing. Star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light, guide us to thy perfect light. Thank you guys so much for being here. We hope to see you again next week. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. It was so great to see so many of you online, and we hope you enjoyed today's service. I want to just say thank you again for those that made Be Rich the success that it was. Not only did we meet our goal, but we exceeded that, and that money is all, like we said, we're not keeping any of it. We're giving it all away to those amazing causes. And so thank you so much for your generosity, and we hope that we can just continue to be generous throughout the year as well. I hope you enjoyed the message today. I, of course, did as well. Have been really excited about this series and learning about the rules of Christmas and learning about the first rule today, that we should treat every day like Christmas, and what that really means, because it feels kind of daunting when you first hear it. So I hope you all enjoyed it as well. We will see you next Sunday. Reminder that it'll be Jingle Jam, so it might be a little bit of a different Sunday than you're used to, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. But until then, we hope you have an awesome Sunday. Have a great rest of your day and a great week ahead, and we'll see you same time, same place next week.